I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with the cattle market summary for the week ending February the 12th, brought to you in part by the American Simmental Association. Studies show that the most durable and fertile female cattle are crossbreds. To learn more about Sim Genetics, go to simmental.org. We kind of had a typical February week this past week here, kind of down in the doldrums. The weather was really cold up north and pretty nice down south, and we're having a little trouble with demand like we do this time of year. And your board on Monday was down the limit, which didn't get things started off very good. Tuesday down pretty good too. Wednesday we got a lot of that back, and then down again on Thursday. On Friday, live cattle for February we're down just 17 to end the week at $129.95, which was down $6.10 for the week. Feeder cattle on the March contract was down 22 cents to end the week at $150.02, which was down $3.80 for the week. We had our fat cattle trade through the week, so we've got off that late Friday night deal finally this week, and we had another pretty good negotiated trade this week so far, and we didn't even get all the cleanup sales listed in there that happened on Friday, and we'll have that next time we talk. But your fat cattle trade, we had a little dabbling of it on Wednesday, which was the high for the week at 134 in the Southern Plains, and also had a little bit of that in Nebraska too for a few select deals, but ended up trading nearly 90,000 head so far negotiated, and that'll go up a little bit by the time we get the weekly reports out. But your live sales ranged all the way from 130 to 134. Like I said, on that Wednesday we had a little dabbling of that 134, but the bulk of the trade in the Southern Plains was on Thursday at 133. We also had some 133 up north, but a lot of 131, 132. Late on Friday, they traded some in Colorado at 130, and they had also traded some in Iowa that way too. Most of your dress trade was at 206, because that's going to be pretty close. But you know, we've got big temperature swings, and we see a lot of that in the fall of the year within one location. But now we're getting a lot of wide swings depending on where you're at. And you went in the Northern Plains this week, and I mean bitter cold, below zero up in Nebraska in places, and Iowa, Wisconsin, you know, Minnesota, and they feed a lot of cattle in that country too. But you got down the Southern Plains, and they're basking in 65, 70 degree weather. That's one of many reasons I'm moving back to the Texas Panhandle. But the one thing you don't have down there for the most part in the Southern Plains is grass and water. So there's a trade-off there. If you want to have grass and water, you're going to have some kind of miserable conditions at some point, unless you're in the southeast, and then it's a little bit too muggy to do anything in the summertime. But you know, it's supposed to warm up here this coming week, and supposed to get that big polar vortex on out of the way, and get out of the Northern Plains where they can warm up too. But the bad thing is that's not always a good deal this time of year for Northern Plains feeders, because the big warm up, when it gets into the 50s, we're talking mud. You forget how much moisture is in that ground, especially in these lots that come from the snows and the ice and the sleet and the rain and everything that's been froze up, and the ground's been pretty hard, and you don't really think about it. But it turns to mush whenever you start getting warm temperatures this time of year. Now down the Southern Plains, you know, it's dry down there, and you know, they're having grass fires already. And that's the reason that they decided to build those feedlots down the Southern Plains 45 years ago or so, was because of that arid, dry climate down there. And then they built the packing houses to go along with them. But about the same time they built the packing houses and the feedlots, a lot of the cows left that country, and they just graze what grass is down there, yearlings in the summertime. So now they're left with a place that doesn't have a lot of feed and doesn't have a lot of cattle, but it's got a lot of pen space and a lot of hooks hanging on the rail. But now we're starting to see a more concentrated volume of the cattle that are fed in the United States in the Northern Plains, where you've got a lot more cattle and you've got a lot more feed. And I don't know, maybe we think that the winters aren't as harsh as they were years ago. Maybe we've got better equipment and can handle them better. But still, whenever it warms up this week, up in the 50s and 60s and maybe even 70s in some places, you're not going to think there's a bottom to some of those pens out there. But your CME feeder cattle index ended the week at 157.60. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central is about $2 lower than that. Of course, that includes the last Friday sales and some sales on Saturday. So we know that CME index is going to come down some more. Your slaughter this past week was pretty decent, bigger than a week ago and a year ago. 544,000, which was 10,000 more than a week ago when we had those shutdowns due to the weather in the northern plains, and 4,000 more than the same week a year ago. Cash feeder cattle sales, your yearling feeder cattle, we don't have many yearlings really this time of year unless they're backgrounded cattle, but your big calves and stuff that are going right to the feedlot were weak to $5 lower, mostly $5 lower in places. We saw some places late in the week where they were as much as 7 or 8 compared to the previous week. But calves are kind of unevenly steady. There's nothing really to drive these big feeding cattle right now. You know, like I said, the feeding conditions, a lot of these pens in some places is not the best. They've got a lot of cattle on feed that they had contracted through the winter and got those on there. We just don't have a big driver to push these cattle that are going right on to feed. Now the calves is a different story. We're just going to see progressively more and more demand for calves and calf weight yearling type cattle, especially those with some condition, to turn out on grass as we get closer and closer to some of these turnout dates. And most guys and most outfits that do it right, they sure want to get those calves in 30 to 45 days, maybe even 60 days before they turn them out. Well, they need to be doing it pretty quick then if that's what they want to do. But check out DV Auction. Just this coming week, we've got 45 production sales this week. So if you need to be getting some bulls bought, we're getting into the full swing of the bull buying season right now. So check out DV Auction for just about any need you might have when it comes to production breeding cattle right there. But from a home office here in Maysville, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.